Okay, so you remember last time on By the Fifth, we were talking with Dee from Deep Marketing, and she talked about how she felt targeted at her job and the emotional stress that it put on her. But this time around, we're going to not just finish up with her talking about that, but we're going to see how she transformed that and used that as fuel to create Deep Marketing and make her the amazing entrepreneur that she is today.
But when I tell you she was picking my days, like she was like this day and this day, and these are like the hardest days for me actually. Mm-hmm. And there were certain days where my daughter had certain, extracurricular activities that I needed to be there for at certain times. And if you know anything about Nashville, and you're trying to go from downtown to...
That's a whole nother episode.
Listen.
That will cause you to stop and get a fifth.
Well, that on its own. That on its own.
Right.
And the potholes. And, and again, I'm having these conversations with people who are higher up, and they're saying things to me like, no, she shouldn't be doing that. You can pick your own days. Or I think you guys just need a break from each other right now. Like I'm gonna tell her she just kind of needs to stand down for a little while. And this was after she had basically demoted me and put someone above me, even though there was no position above me. My favorite part though was whenever she sat myself and my coworker down, who he and I trained together, and sat us down, looked us both in the eye, and said, okay, well, now that I'm your new supervisor, one of the things we need to do is change your titles since they let you guys pick your own.
What?
If I am lying, I am dying. Someone else was in the room. Let's just say that, right? Like he was right there with me. When I tell you we looked at each other, like my eyes got so big, I was like, what did she just say?
Wow.
And I was like, no, ma'am. We did not just pick our titles.
Right.
So you see this happening.
There's a pattern.
There's a pattern. Every day there's something. You're seeing this, right? And again, feeling like you're going crazy. He had an opportunity to move into a different department. And when I tell you that man took that so quick, and I would patted him on the back. I was like, good for you. Don't stay in this hell. Let me burn alone.
Oh my gosh. So everybody, especially in upper management, has to be seeing there is a fire and somebody needs to grab an extinguisher. Right?
And so my position changed because, again, instead of doing two departments, marketing and training, I was just doing one. And I think this was probably the very start of all of it, was when, my co-trainer partner moved to a different department, meaning his title changed. We dropped social media from mine, meaning my title changed. And she contacted me one day, just days after, and asked me to change my title on LinkedIn because it still said Director of Training and Social Media Marketing, but I was now just Director of Training. And I thought, whoa. She's paying way too much attention to me.
Yes.
Who does that? Right? And of course, I captained, changed my title, and for days watched my previous co-trainer's page. 4 days.
To see if that changed.
Screenshotting it. Time stamping it. And then finally I go to him and I said, hey, has she contacted you about changing your title? And he goes, no. And I said, So just the brown girl. Not the white guy.
Right.
Coming from my new white lady supervisor. Like, come on.
Right.
And it's like, it was like textbook targeting, And I literally, again, am saying this. So I'm sure everyone's has seen that movie Titanic, except for Tiffany Flowers. But
I have not.
Probably not.
I forget you don't like movies, but you have to have seen.
I know the part where she goes like this.
Yeah, we all know that.
That's on the cover.
That's
Yeah. But there's this part
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the movie where Rose, I think, says to someone, I feel like I'm standing in a crowded room
Yes.
screaming at the top of my lungs and no one can hear me.
Yes.
And when I tell you that's exactly how I felt.
Wow.
And no one should ever feel that.
No, and people were in the meantime, I was getting calls in the evenings and the afternoons from upper management going, "Don't quit, please don't quit." And I'm like, "Oh, you got nothing's happening, but you're calling me and asking me not to quit."
Oh, wow.
Right.
You know, and it's just like no one's doing anything. You know, and yeah, want to drink.
You want to drink a what?
Yeah, a fifth.
A fifth.
A couple of them.
Yes.
A couple of them.
Uh-huh.
Or throw one in her face.
One of those. So eventually, we get to this point where she, you know, she's hired someone new, no problem, you know, and I've never had an issue with this guy. This man applied for a job. That is all he did. You know, I am not someone who I'm not someone who consistently feels offended or feels like I'm being done wrong and these things. I don't hold things against people who don't deserve to have them held against them, you know? So like and to this day, like me and this man are friendly. Like we have no problems, you know? And so she called me in for a meeting, and I was actually getting ready to go on vacation the following week, and it was like Friday. And she contacts me on Thursday and says, "Well, I want to have this meeting before you go on vacation." And I said, "Well, I'm due to train a new manager."
Please tell me this wasn't
next
like
day.
4:45 p.m.
Right.
on a
it was.
Friday.
No, so here,
Good Lord.
you're gonna love this part. So I was just like, I already have this scheduled, and she goes, "Okay, well then we'll just." And this was like I think at 10 o'clock. Also, this community is kind of out there, right? So it's going to be a drive. So she was like, "Well, then that's fine. We'll just meet at 8."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Okay, so go there first, and then oh, all right, no problem." And I did, which also meant I had to figure out how my daughter was going to get to school that morning, right? You don't just you think that you just can flip the switch and do this,
Right.
that, and the other. People have an entire lives,
Yes.
schedules, things that they have to be aware of, they
Yes.
take care of, you know, who's going to do XYZ at what time. If I have to drive 2 hours into Nashville, like I have to figure those things out. But I did. And I get in there, and she has been exposed to COVID, and we're in this room together. She's got a mask on, at least, but so I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm in here, because I'm supposed to get on a plane in 2 days, right? So that's neither here nor there. That was just annoying, but I guess to say the least. But so we're having this conversation, and, you know, we're talking about things and how things are going to start going, and, you know, he's going to technically be my new supervisor now, which I was like, thank the Lord, you know, anyone but you. But then we get to this point where she goes, and I think just the last thing I want to say is, you know, your as far as your performance goes, she was just like, I'm not seeing the output of work of.
But wait a minute, didn't you say your plate was empty and you were hungry?
Did you
Right.
hear me?
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
And
Got
so I
it.
think that was the moment where that part of me was like, no more. We're not doing this again. Like, I'm sticking up for myself. I've done nothing wrong. I know what I'm worth, and I know what you've been doing. And I kind of just, you know, so I went to Antioch High School. There is a part of me that people do not want to see.
Okay, so for our national audience, Antioch High School. What's happening at Antioch High School?
It's got a reputation.
It's got a okay,
It's got
Yes,
a
yes, yes.
reputation.
Okay.
Lord.
So it has a rep.
Yes, it definitely has a reputation.
You're a survivor. You're a soldier.
I am.
On the battlefield.
Yes, I am.
Wear that badge proudly.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
So
Yes.
so they want to mess with you.
I just, you know, you try to like keep that like monster hid and in a closet, and every now and then it's gonna, and sometimes it does need to come out.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes it does need to come out. I mean, you know, if you continue to let people walk all over you, like that's exactly what they're going to keep doing, you
Yes.
know, and what job, what income is worth that?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And and at this point, like we were saying, it's legitimately disrupting my peace, my home. You know, I'm not spending as much time in the evening with my daughter because I want to complain to my husband all day about what happened to me,
Yes.
right? It matters. So she brings up my, you know, and I kind of stand up and I said, okay, I'm going to stop you there. And I said, because the one thing no one has ever said to me, ever, is that I'm not producing enough work. I said, if anything, I outproduce. I overproduce. And I said, but you wouldn't know that since you've taken everything away from me. And I said, but please keep sitting here and tell me about how I'm not producing enough work. What am I supposed to be doing?
Right.
And I said, not to mention how often I've offered you help while you're just sitting around and just breaking things. Because why? Because you refuse to ask me for help?
So I would say I'm the opposite. I probably ask way too many questions and for way too much help. But again, yeah.
No, I'm just, here we are, right? We're about to call a spade a spade. And then I said, you know, I'll be honest with you. I said, I have never been so disrespected. I said, I have never, ever been treated the way you've treated me. And I said, I have worked with a lot of different people, not to mention I've been at this company for 13 years. I've had different supervisors. I've never had any issues like this. And it was one of those moments where, like, you don't plan anything out, but it's coming out like gunfire. And it's perfect, every bit of it, right?
Yes, because it's been festering.
It has been festering and just growing, right? And I remember the one thing my husband said to me that morning was, please don't catch a case. And we didn't.
You were like, I hear you.
Gotta go. Where's my coffee? Gotta go buy.
Right.
And so I tell her, I said, you know, and then I said, what a shame, too, that you're the head of human resources. I said, I'm sure I'm not the person that needs to tell you that when you're contacting me about changing my title on LinkedIn, like, I don't even know why that matters. Right. And I said that you should be telling the white guy, too, if you're going to tell the brown girl. And when I tell you, her eyes were wide. Her eyes were wide, right? So I get to a point, I say some things, and I have a mic drop moment.
Right.
And then I just look at her and I said, so unless you need anything else or you want to ruin my date any further, I have a prior engagement and I'm supposed to be training a new property manager. I'm sure you don't care anything about that. And I said, so if we don't have anything else, I said, I need to go. And
What do they say sometimes is saying they say y'all know, Dee knows I'm bad at sayings, but it's like you cut the faucet off to stop all the water from flowing, or you like put a Band-Aid on it to stop all the bleeding. Yeah. But I think it's important, you know, depending on the situation, at some point, you just have to make it stop.
Yeah.
You have to make it stop, because if not, it's just like, it's this cycle.
right.
Yes.
It's this cycle.
Right. And it's just like, protect yourself at all costs at the end of the day, you know? And and I truly believe if you were doing right, you've been doing right, you're not out there treating people funky.
Yes.
You know, you're not out there trying to sabotage people's jobs. Like, well, who are you?
Right.
Who does that? Like, everything will work out, you know? And that's really all I could have faith in. And
There's always a silver lining.
Yeah.
There is always a silver lining.
Yeah, and confrontation is healthy.
it
you
can
know?
be.
It can be very healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, this mine probably was not healthy, but the good thing was is I did not curse at her and I did not call her out of her name, and there was a witness.
Okay.
That those were my key points.
Right, so we're not gonna see a video later pop up of you.
Nah, but I wish you
literally
could.
cussing.
I wish when I said I walked out of there, and I wish I would have hit the audio on my phone,
Right.
because I was like, no one's gonna believe this.
But yeah, there's always a silver lining.
Yeah. And let's just say this: one, I am not a bully, and I take no joy out of having to put anyone in their place. But I will also say, you keep pushing me,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna make you sit down. Like, you will not continue to push me, you know. And I'm the daughter of an immigrant. Pushed around, I have seen, Lord. Like, I didn't just become like this overnight, right?
Right.
And I paid my dues. So, just as wide as her eyes could possibly be. And she looks at the gentleman that, she had, was now my new supervisor, and was just like, nope, I don't have anything else. Did you have anything else? And he's sitting there he's back in his seat, like, oh my gosh, is this what I have to work with? And he's like, nope, nope, I don't have anything. And I was just like, all right, well, you have a safe flight back home to the guy. And I said, and I just bye. And I walked out, and I went straight to my car. I went to the nearest gas station, which was very close, stopped at a pump, sat there, and my hands were trembling. And I pick up the phone, I call my husband, and I'm in all tears. And I'm like, let me tell you, and my poor husband, he just keeps going, did you hit her?
This podcast is being brought to you by Apartment Community Functions. If you need an event, let us know. We can handle it. After all, we evented it. Check us out on apartmentcommunityfunctions.com.
The whole time he's like, I need you to answer the question.
No, granted, the only reason why he is saying that is not because I'm gonna do that. Sure. It's because of the buildup, the things he's been hearing, how he knows things are happening, how he knows this is being built up inside of me, right? And, God just praying he's like, I hope you just didn't just lose your shit, right? And so I was just like, no. I was like, oh, why do you keep saying that? So I start telling him, kind of what happened. And he just immediately goes, you got to go, babe.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that's something that is important too. Again, we're all human, but having a support system.
Yes.
And so in that moment, it's a storm, there's thunder, there's lightning, the clouds are going back and forth and all of that. But even after the storm, unfortunately here in Tennessee, we have a lot of tornadoes, right? But what always happens after the tornado hits the next day? There's sunshine, right?
Yes.
You find a sense of relief.
Yeah.
You realize what you just went through was not ideal.
Yes.
But with that sun shining, you realize that there's hope. Tomorrow is going to be better. This next day is the start of the next day. You plan for whatever it is that you see is the right thing for in your future. When did I know that happened to you because I see what you are doing now. I see how you are thriving. I see how you are a successful business owner, right? Nobody wants to go through the tornado, but that tornado
forced me out of a situation.
It threw you into a place where you are absolutely thriving.
Yes.
I bet it's the truth. It's the truth. And I think if you talk to a lot of business owners, many of them do have a story where
a moment.
Exactly.
Yes.
Where they are propelled into this next phase
Absolutely.
of life.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to realize too, is I hate hearing this story, of what you went through, but I see where you are now and I see how successful you are. I see all of the things that are happening in such a positive way. And
Don't make me cry.
I know, but and again, lots of people know me that I'm always looking for the silver lining. So even, like a story like this, your story is unique to you. There are many people that have similar stories. Right. So I hope by them hearing this as well too, whatever you are in the midst of right now, the sun is going to shine.
Yes.
Tomorrow is a new day.
Yes.
You will still have these memories of these hard times and this darkness. But I think lots of times if we don't have these things that throw us into these situations, we never know our full potential.
You're exactly that.
Yes.
That. And so, and repeatedly, my loved ones and the people who know me best, including Tiffany, have said to me, and I'm a very loyal person, sometimes loyal to a fault. I will let you push me around, it just depends on how much I like you.
Right.
But it was one of those things where it's just that had that not happened, I would have never left. This opportunity, I would have never taken this.
Gave birth to.
It sure did. And because I'm also a creature of, I like comfort. I have the same systems. I do the same things, and so I don't like getting pushed into that situation, but it really did. It's just like, as much as this woman was a curse, and Lord, was she a curse, out of that, came this amazing blessing and pushed me into this place of uncomfort. And, I went on that vacation for a week. I was there with, my husband, my daughter, my older sister, her husband, and hearing every single one of them just look at me and go, "We believe in you. Do it. Do it. Do it." Like, no questions, right? Like, I needed that. And that's why that support system is so important, because if they weren't there believing in me more than I believed in myself, I don't know if I would have done it. But I came back, and before I went back to work, I sent in my notice. I put in my notice and then just basically refused to talk to her after that. I was like, I am done. And at that point, I had talked to more than enough people that they knew that decision was carefully thought out. And, I never looked back. I mean, I really haven't. And now, I'm not going to say I'm glad that it happened to me, because it did hit me in a few places where it made me lose faith in people. Like, how could you see this happening to me and let it happen to me? Yes. And that's another thing to just remember. And I just said this to someone today before I came here. Don't be loyal to a job or a company or a place. Ever. Yes. No matter how much you think these people love you. And don't get me wrong, the people at my previous company loved me, and I think they still do, and I still love so many of them. I'm not holding a grudge against them. I realize that they put a person in position, trusted that person to do the right things and make the right decisions, and she failed them as well. I realized that, and it wasn't too much longer before my phone was blowing up one day, and everybody was like, "She's leaving, she's gone, she's leaving." And I was like, well, who saw that coming? Not me. Right. Yes, I did see that coming. But it did. It made me lose faith in people. And the other great thing that it did, though.
Great things, yes.
It made me reevaluate my circle and the people that I did put faith in. It made me reevaluate the people who truly cared about me and the people who threw, what do they call those undercover punches here and there, where they just, they're
sucker punches.
Yeah, like they're trying to say something nice, but then they're offending you at the same time.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it made me reevaluate that. And today, like, my friend group used to be very, very large, and now it's very small. And I like it that way. And I know my people. Peace. It's peaceful. I don't spend time with people who I know don't wish best for me, and don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting out here like support me. Like, I give those people all my love and support too, But it did make me lose faith. But in that losing faith also kind of made me open my eyes a little more than I should have been. I think I was naive in a lot of ways, and one of those were just being completely loyal to a company when in an instant I was being treated in such ways that everybody was just turning a blind eye to.
How long did that situation go on before you called it quits?
So,
too long.
Yeah, because it was obviously too long for her, you know what I mean?
I think it was like March when the transition happened. So, yeah. And then in June, I turned in my notice, and I left in July, and started my business on August 1. So, yeah. And I had no clue what I was doing.
But those days, I mean, they become very long when you're in that type of situation.
Very long.
You're talking about 4 months of those days is a lot, But like Tiffany was saying, that silver lining, that feeling of starting something new that you may not know much about, it's exhilarating.
It is. And this might be a TMI moment, but like, the stress was so high, every month a woman has a process, and that wasn't happening for me. Really? And it was attributed to stress. I was so stressed out all the time, and I had like literally lost over 10 pounds. I was stressed, I was scared, and God, and I mean, I hate to say this, but being someone who's been raised in an immigrant situation, I know how easy it is for someone to just come in and be like, nope, go. You're gone, and we don't care about you, you know? And those are the things that I felt like was going to happen to me. Yeah. And when it really started to affect my health, that's when I knew, when I went to go see my doctor, and she's like, literally everything is, are you okay? Are you stressed? And I was like, oh, I'm stressed.
Yes.
I was like, but I have a therapist for that, so I won't do this to you. And I was like, and I actually said that to one of my VPs. I was like, yo, I haven't, processed like I should. I haven't had a period in 2 months. Like, what's, like, this is doing a lot to me. And everybody was still like, everything's okay,
Wow. But that's how it's going to manifest in our bodies. Eventually our bodies, when you're carrying that much stress and there's no, release or confrontation, it builds up and you're going to feel pains and you're going to feel
never felt
but your body's saying help.
It is. It's saying, like, it's all in your brain, and now we're doing the work.
Right.
Well, I will say this, like, us having this conversation, and lots of times we know there's conversations that need to be had that are uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
But again, here's me with the silver lining, right? You just never know how, by sharing this story, how it can help somebody else.
Absolutely.
Oh, 100. But you know what I
Yes.
mean? Because again, we forget that we're all human. There are other people that go through similar things, and so many times we feel like we are alone, and we are by ourselves, and we're not.
Yes.
So having said all that, like, I thank you for
Yes.
sharing that story with us.
Absolutely.
Because that story is going to help somebody. And it may not be, our neighbor that lives down the street from us. It could be our humanly neighbor that lives in Washington State. But sharing these stories about things that we've gone through, it helps people. It really does. And so
does.
I thank you for sharing that. Now I'm going to ask this again because I lost count about how many times we said the fifth. So when you left that situation,
Right. Was there a fifth of celebration or?
right, like how many fifths were there? How many?
There was a fifth of celebration,
Okay.
and I want to give a lot of credit to my small circle and to my husband, who, they clapped so loud for me that I stopped noticing when everyone else didn't.
Wow.
Like they were my support, and even when I had moments where I was starting my business and things don't just kick off, right? And I'd have some hard times where I'd be like, hey, I'm still not making the money I need to. My husband would look at me and be, I'm not tripping yet. Like, have I said anything? It's okay. And this man still never was like, you don't need to be getting your nails done. You don't need to go have that dinner with your friend. That was the support that I needed. And I also realized, like, I wouldn't have this business if it wasn't for his support.
So you know what I just heard? I need to buy him a fifth.
Oh, I've done it. Don't worry. I have bought him plenty.
I think I won the contest of how many times can we say the fifth. But I love to hear that too.
Love it.
Yeah, there was a celebration. It was scary.
Yeah.
But it was also in here. And if there's one thing that anyone takes away from this, where the real celebration came from, truth, was the fact that I chose myself.
Yes.
And when I say
Choose yourself every time.
all the time is the most
yourself.
powerful decision I had ever made, and what people don't know and the world doesn't know, and all these people that I worked with didn't know, was I had a very difficult 2 years leading up to that. Very difficult, which in just life stuff, which got me into that notion of like choosing myself. And so I have this journal that I still have to this day that I use to start my business, wrote all my ideas in it. Every call that I had with an attorney or a tax person, how to register my business, the works. And there's one section of this journal where I wrote in it, about how I hurt because I feel like I'm never getting chosen. Like, I feel like no one believes in me, and I'm not choosing no one chooses me. And in that journal, though, I also wrote, but like, how can I expect anyone to choose me when I never choose myself? Wow. I choose everyone over me. And I had been doing that for a long time. Moms are like that. Women tend to put everything before themselves. And I just remember writing that in that journal, and I had read it so many times during the time where I left my company and started my business. But this sense of knowing that I had chose myself above all else, I think was so empowering to me that was my silver lining. That was my, pat myself on the back, and I'm proud of you for doing that. And I have not stopped.
Yeah.
I have not stopped, and I never will stop, because I have realized my life was so much harder, so much more difficult. Nothing was going my way when I was putting everyone above myself, right? And then when the moment I stopped, it's like things fell into place. Now, is life always going to be easy? No, it's not. But choose yourself.
Yes. I love that. I love the fact, it's so you're going through this, but there needs to be a conversation had. You're feeling all of this, trouble that's going on. It's affecting your body. It's affecting your health. But this conversation has to happen.
Yes.
Everybody sees it, but nobody's saying anything. Right. But it's affecting you, But it comes to a place that you decide to say, hey, we got to have this conversation. And be that as it may, whether good, bad, or ugly, we have this conversation. But at the same time, it's you know what? I think I'm going to start choosing me.
I love it.
I'm out of here, and you step into the new thing in your life. That is amazing. I wish I would have heard this podcast back when I was going through this some years ago, because I went through the same thing.
Yes.
And literally, and like Tiffany said, people think you're the only one going through it. But I could literally go down the same path that you said. The car, the conversation, you know what I mean? Feeling like the world is caving in on me, having problems in my body, you know what I mean? All of that I experienced as well. So it's not just you that's feeling it, but the same way that you felt that, sense of, when you decided to, choose yourself and celebrate yourself and start something new. There's nothing like that, you know what I mean? There's nothing like that. That celebration, so man, we applaud you and
Thank you.
That is awesome. And your courage to get through it, make it through, and not just buy the 5th because life sucks, but I bought the 5th because I'm celebrating
There
me.
you
Let's go. Let's
there
go.
You go. That's a celebration. Oh my God.
Yes.
I hope everybody has enjoyed this. They feel encouraged. Put this on repeat, because gosh.
Yes.
You talk about choosing yourself, encouraging yourself. Yes, I was taking notes. I loved it. I feel encouraged now.
Me too. We're all encouraged.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me. This is great, and I'm so glad you're doing this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And remember to share, subscribe to Buy the 5th. We look forward to seeing you next time. So God bless. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. The name is Trent, Roger Trent, but you can call me Tico. What's up?